this lab, we'll be testing the high availability mechanisms implemented by the Centrify agent. This applies to Unix, Linux, and Macs as well. We'll be performing all the functions with George in the App1 server. So high availability. In terms of Unix, Linux, it's very important that the agent is resilient and is available. And if I was a Unix administrator, I would be very concerned that I'm not able to do my functions because I don't have no authentication. So Centrify uses several mechanisms like Active Directory sites and services, the offline cache, protects the processes, makes sure that the system configuration files are basically functional, and has watchdog processes to control that. So we're going to illustrate some of those. First is Active Directory sites and services. Some of you that are familiar with Active Directory understand that within a site you can have multiple domain controllers. I've actually added a domain controller to my environment. It's actually DC2. So what we'll do is we'll pretend that our domain controller goes down, and then we'll attempt to have it switch. So let's go ahead and sign in as George, and type in my password. All right. So the most important command that you need to know is the adinfo command. So adinfo tells you a lot of things about the connectivity of the agent. So if I type adinfo, you will see basically this information. That I'm talking, the domain controller that I'm talking to. In this case, I'm talking to DC1. Also the preferred site that I'm working with, and the mode that I'm working on. So connected means that I have a persistent connection to a domain controller. In this connected mode means that I'm working off the cache, and down means that the Centrify agent is not running. So let's take a look at this in action. So another command that is really important is the adinfo minus capital T. This actually tests out connectivity with the domain controllers. So let's take a look at our topology here. So let's go ahead and run the adinfo minus T command. And let me adjust this here. And let's do more. And notice that we went out and did a search on DNS, and there's two domain controllers that can satisfy my connectivity. So I've actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the configuration of the file of the agent to simulate a domain controller going down. So let's go ahead and go to the etc. And in here, I'm going to edit the centrifydc.com file. And let's do a VI. So there's a parameter called dns.block. And what it does, it allows you to block domain controllers that you don't want to have them be contacted. And this could be because maybe that domain controller is behind a firewall, or maybe that domain controller is in a remote site or a disaster recovery site. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a few lines here. So I'm going to do DNS block. And let's do DC1. So basically what I've done, I said, I'm going to block DC1. So notice that I was connected to DC1 originally. If I scroll up, notice that I was connected to DC1. So immediately after I made that change, it was very fast. I didn't have to do an AD reload. Immediately I swapped domain controllers to DC2. So I've actually forced that. This is a great way to emulate it. Another way that I can do it is by disconnecting the NIC card on my VMware environment. So there's several ways you could do that. So notice that we were able to pick another domain controller within the site. So if I go out there and I do the reverse, I'm going to go now and I'm going to block DC2. So find DNS block. And let's go ahead and instead let's do DC2. Another thing that you could do an AD reload. DC do AD reload. That forces the agent to reload or reread the configuration file. So let's do an AD info. And notice now that I'm connected to DC1. So this actually allows you to force basically or to emulate that you're picking a different domain controller based off that. So what about if there's no connectivity at all to Active Directory? That's another scenario. Maybe the switch went down, or maybe the interface went down. Unix administrators want to continue to be able to work. In this case, you could use the offline cache. The best way to test it is to go straight to the console. So instead of using my CentOS, I'm going to go to my Ubuntu machine. And what I'll do is a good old disconnecting of the NIC card. So notice that I'm over there. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the NIC card on the system. So I'm going to go to the VM, remove all devices, network card, and I'm going to disconnect it. So let's go ahead and try and log in as George. At this point, notice that the prompt is going to take a little time to come up. That's because we are, basically retrying to connect and find the domain controller. In this case, in this machine, I have not put the DNS block, but I disconnected the NIC card. So at this point, I have a very strong error condition going on. So in a few, I'll probably get the prompt in there, and I'll be able to log in with cache credentials. There you go, we got the prompt. And I'm able to log in. And notice that when I do an AD info, you will see a very different output here. And still, when I do that, it's trying to go and reconnect. So notice that it says disconnected and no domain controller available. So this is total failover. And this scenario is an interesting scenario, right? In this case, I've logged in before in this machine, so I'm logging in with cache credentials. But what if you have thousands of servers, and it's very unlikely that you've logged in before in the machine? You need to have a way to do that, and Centrify has a way to deal with that. It's called pre-validation. And finally, for the third scenario I'm going to show you, I'm going to divide this video in two parts. I'm going to show you process protection, right? So if I'm just a regular Joe, and the process for Centrify is called AD client. So if we do ps-ef and then try and find AD client, you see that process right there with 3006 is my AD client. If I were to send it maybe a kill, let's do a very bad kill, like a kill -9, and 3036. In this case, notice that the operation is not going to be permitted, and that's because root owns that process. So all the Centrify related processes are owned by root.